الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا مولانا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، واللعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق: أعوذ بالله العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. صدق الله العلي العظيم. So when I was told that I'd be speaking today, I was thinking, anytime we give a speech about any great personality in our tradition, I never like to bring any points for myself, because who am I to be talking about these people? So obviously the best thing is you want to go to Quran and Ahadith. But yet again, who am I? I'm not competent enough, I'm not qualified enough to be looking at the Quran myself and extracting ayat and trying to analyze them. So fortunately, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, I did receive an email, a very nice article actually in Arabic, talking about the difference between a woman and a wife. So I thought I'd recycle some of that content and add a few more details for, say it's البنين. So before I begin, just to outline how this should work, just because I think today I have a little extra time than I used to before. Inshallah, first I just want to talk about, generally, very quickly, about how, with at least البنين, how, at least in terms of being a mother and a wife, is very special, specifically for her as opposed to any other woman in the history of Islam. And then, inshallah, once we do that, we're going to actually go, and before we talk about the specifics of her life and all the service she has provided for this religion, I want to actually get into, obviously, Quran and talk about the history of when the Quran talks about wives or women, whether negative light or positive light, chronologically. So we'll start from the beginning and then come all the way up, work ourselves up to البنين. So inshallah, if you're up for the task of listening to me for the next about 20 minutes, please recite aloud salawat. So first we begin with why is البنين so special, and when we talk about her, she deserves to be almost characterized specifically by her being a wife and a mother. So when I was doing a little bit of research, I actually did find some ziyarat which are supposed to be read, especially on this night, as well as when we do her ziyarat Jannatul Baqiyah. So when I found the ziyarat, it's very short. It's only 5 lines. So I'll read it real quick in front of you and then give you a quick paraphrase. So it goes, Assalamu alayki ya zawjata waliyillah. السلام عليك يا زوجة أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا أم البنين. السلام عليك يا أم العباس أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنك وجعل الجنة منزلك ومأواك ورحمة الله وبركاته. So these are just 5 lines. And out of these 5 lines, 4 are talking about her either being a wife or a mother. The first 2 lines, Assalamu alayki ya zawjata waliyillah. Peace be upon you, O wife of Allah's wali. Next line, Assalamu alayki ya zawjata amir al-mu'mineen. Peace be upon you, O wife of the Prince of Believers. So these are the two sections talking about her just being a wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then the next two lines, Assalamu alayki ya al-Binin. That's all you need to say. Just use her title and that's enough. So peace be upon you, O al-Binin, literally meaning mother of children or mother of sons, several sons. And then the fourth line, Assalamu alayki. This is where it gets really specific. Assalamu alayki ya al-Abbas ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. That peace be upon you, O mother of Ahlulbaitcenter ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen. So, and then obviously the last line is saying, may Allah be pleased with you, grant you a very high level in Jannah, and so on. But out of these 5 lines, 4 of them just talk about her relationship. Now, obviously, we look at other personalities. Obviously, we have Sayyidat Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidat Nisa. And yes, she was definitely the best wife ever, and the best mother ever. However, that's not what made her special. It's because of the asma that she was the best wife, the best mother, not the other way around. Then we come to, for example, earlier in history, one of the great ladies, say Maryam. Now obviously she was a mother, but she wasn't a wife. So out of those two things, we can only talk about one. So, but with al-Binin, you'll notice what made her special is her role as a wife and then her role as a mother. That's it. Although those are the two things that make her special. So now, inshallah, what we want to do is move to the next portion of this discussion, and that's actually analyze the different women in history, whether it was a negative role or a positive role, and work ourselves all the way up to al-Binin. So, just to begin, on a general note, is I actually started with, before I started the lecture, وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. So, I don't want to necessarily give a literal translation because the point is not the scrutiny over the actual wordings, but to paraphrase it generally, it's saying that it's talking about those people who say, "O our Lord, grant us wives and children, or offspring, who are the apple of our eyes, are precious to our eyes, and make us for the muttaqeen, for the pious people, a leader." Now, if you look at the first part, it makes sense. Okay, anyone can be trying to say this. Anyone can say, "Oh Allah, hey, give me a wife, give me children who are the apple of my eyes, very precious to me." But then you look at this last clause, وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. And no one, if you really think about it, none of us really have the right to ask this of Allah. So we learned that after the Shahada, to say the Fatima, the Zahra, that Amir al-Mu'mineen actually asked his Maqatil, that listen, go out, and I need a wife. But it's not necessarily that he's trying to cope with his loss, he's trying to recover from the martyrdom of his wife. No, he has an end game in plan. Because remember, it says, "Azwajina wa dhurriyatina." So obviously the end game is going to be obviously offspring, and inshallah we'll get into the details later. So now to get to the specific note, we're going to start with the very first one, Adam. In Surah Al-Baqarah, very simply, وَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمُ اسْكُنْ أَنْتَ وَزَوْجُكَ الْجَنَّةَ. Now the precise thing is when we look at these ayat, whether the word zawj is used or the word imra'ah. Because what we're discussing here is the difference between what makes a wife and what doesn't. And it's not as simple as simply just being married to someone. So here, Allah is being portrayed as the wife of Adam, and it would only make sense because when Allah created them, He created them for each other. So they were compatible. So here we see that Allah refers to Allah as zawj. Now we move to the next one, and now it starts getting a little negative. So like I said, we're still going to go chronologically, so we'll move to 2 more prophets mentioned in the same ayah. ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما. So the two prophets here are going to be Prophet Noah or Nuh and Prophet Lot or Lut. And both of them are referred to as, you can in a way say Lot's woman as opposed to Lot's wife. And hopefully we should know this, but I'll quickly go over the stories really quick just so we have it fresh in our memories again. So first we're going to take a look at Noah. And very famously we know that Noah did have actually a son who refused to get on the ark, and he said, no, Father, I'll go on that mountain and I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So then Noah does dua that, Allah, please save my son. And then Allah replies, he's not your son. Don't call him your son because the way he treated you, he can no longer be called your son. So now the question is, this is a prophet. How did he end up with a son like this? So the question is, you look at the mother. And now in this verse, it actually talks about this mother. And now once again, I don't know if we can use the word mother because we can't even call her a wife in the first place. And to be considered a mother, you first have to be a wife. So like I said, the matrimony itself is not what constitutes, what makes a woman a wife or not. So here we have the situation of Noah, that he was unfortunate enough to, Allah tested him with this kind of woman, and then he ended up with that kind of son, and obviously we know what the end result is going to be at the end of the day. Now moving on to Lut, real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on these. So moving on to Lut, Lut with his phone, he had a very difficult time. But what distinguished his problem from the other prophets is that along with the phone that he had to deal with, along with the generation of group he had to deal with, his wife was part of that group. He wasn't really part of his family. Everything he tried doing, the wife would get in the way. We talk about he had some guests over, angels that came in the guise some angels who came in the guise of human beings. They came to his house, and what does the wife do? She tells everyone else outside the house. So, and then real quick, in the story, what happens is, obviously, as Allah is going to send down punishment, so he tells Lut, listen, I'm going to send down punishment. I'm sick and tired of these people, of their actions. So what you need to do is you need to get out that night. But here's the catch. You cannot turn around. Don't turn around and look back. Because if you turn around and look back, the result will be catastrophic. So at this point you think maybe the wife actually listened for a second because she starts leaving with Lut. But she turns around. And then she's no more. So in these cases, both of Nuh and Lut, we see that they were married to a woman, but that woman can't be considered a wife. And because obviously they can't be considered a wife, forget being considered a mother. Now, I don't want to be upsetting the ladies right now because they're thinking, wow, this guy, he's just talking about women, and he's talking about all these bad women and how they're not compatible, they don't deserve their husbands. But the final example, before we actually get to the contemporary of the Prophet and the final example, actually, we see the opposite. It's not necessarily that the man is always good and what makes a woman a wife or not is whether or not she's a good person. It doesn't work like that. You have to look at both the man and the woman. So we go to one more prophet. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. So now here we have Pharaoh, and then we have So what we see here is that now in this situation, the woman's actually good. So if the woman's good, why can't she consider her wife anymore? So now we see it's really, you have no reason to think it's one-sided that we're just judging the woman. We're just looking, okay, is the woman good? Okay, if she's good, she's a wife. If she's not, you can't call her a wife. No. You have to look at both sides. So here you see that she is one of the most pious ladies before the time of the Prophet. But the problem is that Fir'aun was bad. So the whole point here is that you'll, like I said, it's not like I'm an expert here, I'm an authority, but I'm just telling you what I've always heard from the scholars, what I've always read. written by the scholars. And every time, whenever they talk about marriage, they'll say that the primary thing, they'll use one word, kufr. That the two people have to be compatible. So when there's any disconnect of any kind, where you see one is significantly worse than the other one is significantly better, then this concept of husband and wife, this family unit, is disturbed. So either way, what we want to avoid is that by calling the woman the wife of the man, we're afraid of insulting either the man, so either if we call those women their wives, then that's an insult to the prophets. Now if we call, for example, Asya the wife of Fir'aun, that's an insult to her. So that was a very, very brief, quick overview of just a few of the women mentioned. And the differentiation, like I said, I didn't want to take too much time pointing out the Arabic intricacies. But like I said, notice in each ayah that where the only, out of these examples that I've given you, the only ayah where the word zawj is actually used is for Adam and Allah. And that's because, like I said, Allah actually created them for each other. So they have to be compatible. However, in the other situations where one was pious and one was bad, one was evil actually, not just bad, evil, then you just see the word women. Fir'aun's woman, Noah's woman, Lut's woman. So now, real quick, right before we jump to Al-Mu'mineen, we're going to start with Rasulullah. And this is a very hot topic between different schools of thought in Islam. But the problem is that they never look at other ayat, and like I said, now that we know that we have to differentiate between a woman and a wife, so now we have a better way of looking at these ayat. So the first ayat that we're going to look at, النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم. So it's saying, okay, Rasulullah, he is an authority of all the people over their own selves. He has more authority over the mu'mineen more than they have over themselves. And then the second part says, and his wives are their mothers. Okay. But the question is, like I said, just because they're wedded or married to the Prophet doesn't mean they can be considered a wife. And this is why any time in Quran you look at an ayah, you can never look at an ayah by itself. You either have to look at the ayah before, after, or sometimes you have to do extra work. You have to look at, for example, you're in the 30th part of the Quran. The last part of the Quran, you may have to look at the first part of the Quran with same phrasing but different wording, or same word but different phrasing. So now we look at another ayah, Surah Al-Ahzab, where we have ayah Taqleel. But before ayah Taqleel and after ayah Taqleel, what words used? Ya Nisa al-Nabi. Not Ya Azwaj al-Nabi, Ya Nisa al-Nabi. So we have some people who are considered the Prophet's women, and we have some people who are considered the Prophet's wives. And the wives are the ones who are considered mothers of the believers. But not the women. Because like I said before, and this you don't need to go to Quran for, you just use your common sense. The first is wife, then the second step is mother. So the Quran makes it very clear, and doesn't even let him get to the mother part, because it bars him from the wife part. So like I said, this also comes into play, like I said, because we're going to try drawing a parallel between the Prophet and Imam Ali in terms of the wives, that in Hadith Kitab, we read it every time, but sometimes we fail to look at actually the rawat, the sabab al-nuzul, and the other intricacies of what was happening outside the club, or the other people involved. So for example, we have Salama, and she asked the Prophet, she asked for permission to enter. And the Prophet very politely, a lot of love, says, you cannot enter within the cloak, but don't wear it until halakha. Don't worry, you're in a good position, you don't have to worry about anything, you just can't come in this cloak because this cloak's a little higher than your level, but don't worry, you're going to end up in a good place with Allah. Then you have someone else who asks the Prophet, and the Prophet, you see the lahja changes right away. And she asks, can I come? And he says, no, don't you dare take a step forward. Stay where you are. So the parallel I want to draw though is with the Prophet, obviously, his first wife and the only wife he had at that time before her passing was Khadija. Now Sayyidah Khadija was obviously the Prophet's most beloved wife, and even after passing he was always talking about her, which made some other wives jealous. But then after that we have other wives who were good personalities, who set a good example for us. And the specific one I want to focus on is one they already mentioned, Salama. So now what we have is Khadija, and after her passing, Salama, who maybe not necessarily is at that rank, but she still is pious. And she still plays a positive role in the Prophet's life. And now finally we're going to take one more step forward to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And so obviously we have the Prophet with Khadija. Now Imam Ali had Sayyidah Zahra. Obviously she's considered one of the 14 infallibles. But you still can draw some sort of parallel that they were the first wife. They had no other wives during that time. So they were the first and only wife as long as they were before their passing. And then after Sayyidah Zahra passed, she was martyred actually, sorry. After she was martyred, then you have Imam Ali, I'll repeat this real quick, asking Ali that, listen, I need a wife, but I don't want you to just go look out for any wife, because the thing with Imam Ali at that point is he's already, as soon as he's caliph, and then everyone's going to be rushing to be his wife. No, he's specifying, I want you to look in a tribe that has a sense of courage, a sense of honor, a sense of bravery. And obviously, Imam Ali, he knows what's going to happen, but he's doing this for us. He's trying to set an example that, listen, when you're looking for a wife, don't just look for a woman, look for a mother. Because when you're looking for the mother, you're already thinking of what kind of children you want to end up with. So when Benin comes, and she's from the tribe that's known for their bravery, they're known for their shuja'ah, they're known for their courage. So unfortunately, there's not that much literature talking about her younger years or her birth, but we start to hear more about her obviously when she marries the Benin. And her original name, obviously, Benin is a title. It means mother of several sons, obviously because she did have 4 sons. But her original name was actually Fatima. So when she got married, the thing though is that she realized who she's married. That she doesn't consider herself a wife. She doesn't consider herself a replacement mother for the 4 children Imam Ali already has. She's coming in with a sense of servitude. That I'm coming to serve them. And then when she first got married, she told him, hey, listen, you've been calling me Fatima the first few times, but you can't be doing that anymore. Because every time your children hear you call me Fatima, they look up and they start thinking of their mom. So please find a different title, a different name, because I can't stand it that every time you call me Fatima, that these children look up. And they're looking around and they start thinking of their mother. So she came in, and she's known for her 4 sons. The most famous of which is obviously Abbas. And then I'm not completely sure of the order of age, but just listing the other 3, Ja'far, Abdullah, and Uthman. And the thing with Uthman is I want to just notify you guys that it's not about the name. Because those 3 names you see in many pious people. I was actually reading a riwayah earlier today. There was another Abu Bakr who was actually warning about Hussein that, listen, why are you even trusting these people in Kufa? You saw what they did to your father, you saw what they did to your brother, and now they're going to promise you they're going to go back up. So that's a tangent, but I just wanted to make that point real quick when I mentioned the 4th son of Uthman. So these were the 4 sons she was notable for mothering. But the important thing is, how did she raise these sons? Because she came to these sons and she said, listen, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they're not your brothers. Don't think of them as your brothers. Don't even call them your brothers. Don't even think of them as your brothers. So that's why you will never, ever find any sort of narration. And I know I'm running out of time, so I won't I apologize. But you will never ever find a narration in which you have any four of these sons of al-Binin ever referring to either of the imams using the word akh, brother. You have the word mawla. Right? And what do they refer to themselves? They never refer to themselves as, for example, a brother of these individuals, of these imams. They use the word for themselves, mawla. So now, I want to fast track a little bit just because I know I'm approaching half an hour. I think the time limit is about 25, but just real quick. So obviously, the whole point was it was an intentional preparation for Karbala. And what most people don't know is that the first majlis, the first Ash'ar for Imam Hussein actually happened on Ashura. And who was the first person to commemorate the Shahadat? It was al-Binin, and she wasn't even there. Back in Medina, she had a bottle. And she was told that when this bottle, the contents of this bottle change color, then know that the Imam Hussein, the Imam that your four sons were serving, that he will have the children. And as soon as she saw the color change, she called everyone in her house and they had budgets. On Ashura, the same exact day. She was the very first person to begin this institution of majalis. And then, right before I end, just to show that in the ziyarah, we always say, Ya Aba Abdillah, may my father be your man's grandson, may my mother, that I am considering you closer and more important to me than my own parents. The idea. Yet you'll notice that the one-way love, there's no more one-way love than a mother has for her child. Because you have many people you see how they treat their parents, how they forget about their parents like that. So, okay, if you consider Imam Hussein more important to you than your parents, that's obviously a very good thing, but it's nothing compared to when a mother cares more about a son which is not even her blood. Not even her blood. And yet when they come back from Karbala, they tell her, and she asks for the news, what's happened, to give me some information. They say, please accept our condolences. Your son Uthman was shaheed. She's like, I'm not asking about Uthman. So they said, oh, we're sorry, we also forgot to mention your other sons, Ja'far and Abdullah. She's like, oh, why are you really think I'm asking about them? So then they finally said, oh, of course, the most important, Abbas. And she looked at him and she said, are you not getting the memo? And she finally said, no, tell me about Hussein. Tell me about Hussein. And we are actually told that she is probably of all of the notable figures, she is the most notable woman. And like I said, the very first person to begin this institution of majalis. I know I went over time, I apologize sincerely for that. But after all this, we just want to do a quick dua because, like I said, she is buried in Jannatul Baqi, and we all know what the own people have done over there. So we ask dua that, first of all, Allah, may you condemn those people, curse those people, punish those people who don't allow us to visit and do ziyarah properly of her great site. And also, those people who pretty much destroyed the great site in the first place. But most importantly, we ask Allah to grant us her ziyarah in the future in the name of and that we ask for the shafa'ah of the very Imam who she raised your sons to protect him. Thank you very much.